Good evening. On this day, 1188 of the Trump administration. That leaves exactly 196 days until our presidential election. The headline today belonged to the director of the CDC. In an interview with the Washington Post, he warned a possible second wave of coronavirus this coming winter could be deadlier than what we are living through right now. So with that in mind, the question came up at today's White House briefing. Should Georgia really be allowing hairstylists, tattoo artists, and massage therapists to go back to business, considering those three occupations, for starters, depend on close proximity, human-to-human contact? Dr. Birx, when asked about it, took a pass. She said she didn't want to prejudge. The president said he presumes customers will be tested on their way in. And of course, the truth is our nation has nothing close to that capacity. Dr. Birx said she doesn't know if a second wave could be deadlier than this because, quote, she thinks this has been pretty bad. For his part, our president said he sees, quote, a lot of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's getting brighter and brighter every day. He said again today, not everyone wants to do significant testing. He said in some cases it's not good. He said he really believes, quote, we'll be able to put out the fires if this disease pops up again, because he said we've gotten really good at this. Elsewhere during the briefing, he wished Kim Jong-un well, and as he does every day, he reminded us of the death toll projections had he chosen to do nothing. In the real world tonight, the United States death toll stands at over 44,000. With between 1% and 2% of our total population tested, we know at least of more than 803,000 confirmed cases in the U.S. Worldwide, the number of confirmed corona cases north of 2.5 million now. As we mentioned, the director of the CDC is warning this second wave of coronavirus this winter will likely be worse because, quote, we're going to have the flu epidemic and the coronavirus epidemic at the same time. This evening, President Trump and Task Force Coordinator Dr. Deborah Birx insisted the federal government will be well prepared should that happen.
I believe that we'll have early warning signals, both from our surveillance. We're going to continue that surveillance from now all the way through the fall to be able to give us that early warning signal.
If they do come back, and they could come back together with heavy on the flu and much lighter on, because I really believe we'll be able to put out the fires. You know, it's like fires. And we've learned a lot. You know, we've become very good at this.
Dr. Redfield of the CDC, the man who issued the warning, notably not at today's briefing. That is the backdrop against which the president is publicly urging states to ease those stay-at-home restrictions. There are growing concerns. Some governors are moving much too rapidly. White House guidelines recommend states have more robust testing for COVID, plus tracing programs already in place before those restrictions are allowed to be eased. In Georgia, where, as we mentioned, hair salons, massage therapists, tattoo artists will be allowed to reopen in a few days. Fewer than 1% of that state's population has been tested for this virus. State also does not have a 14-day trajectory of a decline in cases, which the White House also, of course, recommends. Today, Trump was asked about that.
We have to build back our country, and I'm going to make our country bigger and better and stronger, and we have to get started. There's a big difference, though, because people have really been through a lot, and they understand what to do now. Before, nobody had ever heard of a thing like this. Wouldn't you say? I mean, nobody ever heard of a thing like this. Distancing, social distancing, what does that mean? Washing your hands every 15 minutes, what does that mean? I mean, people had never seen or heard about anything like this. Now they really are. They've not only have they done it, but they've done a good job of it. But you have people, you can't break the country. At some point, you have to go back.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has insisted his state needs more help from the federal government before it can even consider reopening. Today, the governor traveled to Washington to meet with the president.
I had a very productive meeting with Governor Cuomo, as you probably saw, to discuss his statewide testing strategy and how we can work together to help expand it with the goal of doubling testing in the next few weeks.
Commitment is to attempt and make all efforts to double the number of tests that the state is taking from 20,000 to 40,000.
You got a commitment from President Trump to try to get to 40,000 antibody tests per day in the state of New York.
40,000 diagnostic and antibody
Combined.
total.
And Trump has picked up an assist in his campaign to reopen the country from his compliant and helpful and loyal Attorney General. Bill Barr has publicly questioned stay-at-home orders before. In a radio interview today, Barr went a lot further and indicated the Justice Department is now monitoring what states are trying to do to save lives.
These are unprecedented burdens on civil liberties right now. You know, the idea that you have to stay in your house is disturbingly close to house arrest. I'm not saying it wasn't justified, but it's very onerous, as is shutting down your livelihood. We're looking carefully at a number of these rules that are being put into place, and if we think one goes too far, we initially try to jawbone the governors into rolling them back or adjusting them, and if they're not and people bring lawsuits, we file statement of interest and side with the plaintiffs.
Tonight, we also learn more about Trump's coming executive order restricting immigration into our country, which he says is all about protecting American workers.
In order to protect American workers, I will be issuing a temporary suspension of immigration into the United States. This pause will be in effect for 60 days. This order will only apply to individuals seeking a permanent residency. In other words, those receiving green cards.
One other development that caught our eye, and we weren't alone, the New York Times was first to report Trump's signature hotel in D.C. is looking for a break from the government. The pandemic has pretty much wiped out the hotel's business, and the next month's rent is coming due. Trump Organization owns and operates the hotel, but it's in a federally owned building, the old post office building. Rent goes to the GSA, the General Services Administration. Eric Trump, the president's son, tells the Times the company has asked about possible changes to the terms of the lease, which could include adjustments to future monthly payments. That all creates an interesting situation since the GSA, of course, is part of the administration.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.